Thursday, everyone. Welcome to another Lunch and Learn Thursday with Purse Strings. My name is Maggie, and I am a partner at Purse Strings, and we are all about providing some financial tips, tricks, know-how, um, you know, for our communities of women. And then when you're ready to go, get some Medicare, you get a windfall, or you're getting divorced, or you're buying a new house. We have professionals willing, ready, and able to serve you who'd love to serve our communities of women. We call those our Purse Strings approved professionals, and Laura Winningham is one of those professionals. So we're going to talk all today about getting clear about Medicare, which is such a fun topic. But before we dive in, Laura, we'd love a little intro of who you are and what you do.
Hi, my name is Laura Winningham. I'm the founder of LifeMap, and I mostly focus on helping people transition into Medicare, but I also do under 65 market ACA, which there's a lot of subsidies with that coming up. So there's a lot of opportunity there as well. But I do all types of insurance for people.
Awesome. Well, we are excited to get into this Medicare because I know it can be a confusing topic. So we're going to get some of those things clear. So we're going to first start with a little scenario of the neighbor keeps saying, oh, I have this Advantage plan, and she brags how it's a $0 premium. How do I know if this is going to be good for me?
Well, when you start to turn 65, it's interesting because there's a whole little emotional dynamic to that because you can't quite believe you're turning 65. The next thing that happens is your mailbox starts getting flooded with all kinds of mailers, call me. Then you start noticing all the ads that are like, oh, you're going to be missing out or making a mistake if you don't call this 800 number. And so then you reach out to your uncle that's on Medicare, your neighbors, you go to the Liars Club, and that's basically breakfast where y'all brag about how good you were at breakfast time, and y'all meet every Wednesday. So that's pretty famous. Everybody asks everybody there, for advice. What's interesting is it's really easy to transition into Medicare, but you do not want to take advice from anybody who's not licensed. I'm independent, which means I start working directly with my clients, finding out who they are and what their specific needs are. And that's why you can't ask your neighbor, because your neighbor's health needs are different than yours. So you want to start with a licensed professional. It's nice to start with an independent, because if I rolled up and talked to you about Medicare and I only sold for XYZ company, guess which Medicare is going to be the best for you? It's XYZ.
XYZ.
So I do it quite opposite. I actually talk with you to understand your specific situation, and then I match it up with the one of the better companies. Also, I have their, I've been doing this for 10 years, so I have their track record on how they increase premiums, and that's something you don't have. So I can steer you in the right direction.
Wow, those are great pieces of advice, because some of that asking others is kind of like the blind leading the blind. Yeah. And even if you think things are similar, they might have a different medical, like family history that, they're thinking about versus what you have to think about as well. Yeah. So when's the good time to start having these conversations and, calling you up and thinking about these things?
I always suggest to be super proactive, and because it'll short circuit kind of all the things that are coming at you and all the confusion. So you're eligible when you turn 64 and a half. So that's when you can go ahead and talk with a professional. And the reason for that also is we can tell you all the different things that you need to do to get everything lined up perfectly. And it gives us enough time that if there's a snag, we can work out the snag. But if you decide early and get that kind of off your plate, when people start calling you and, you get the mailers, you can just start throwing those away because the stress is off of you. So the earlier, the better, but you have all the way, up to you turn 65, and you actually have 3 months after you turn 65, but most people want the coverage right at 65. So
definitely. So 64 and a half sounds like the perfect time. Mm-hmm. So how do you kind of get clear on what plan to get? I mean, granted, talk with you, but let's give some advice for today.
Well, what's interesting is everybody, because of the booklets, they always try to read up on them. And I feel sorry for them because I don't like reading them because, and I'm paid to do it. And so they feel super vulnerable because they feel like I should know more than I do. I work with a lot of teachers that had a lot of that, oh, I've got to do my homework before she comes. And they always feel inadequate. So the first thing I do is explain to them that I was a terrible math student. It'd be like handing me a calculus book. I don't care how long I'm going to stare at it. I'm not going to figure it out. So anyway, but yeah, so I kind of take that alleviation off of them. Then the decision, it's interesting. They only have one of two choices. So they can either select a Medigap or a Medicare supplement plan. And that's, opening up where they don't have networks and they can go to any doctor across the US that takes Medicare, or they can choose an Advantage plan, which, is designed more like an HMO, and it's significantly lower on the premiums. So, we just have a discussion to find out which you prefer on that. Once you make that decision, it's very easy. Then we go into what your situation, your market area. If you put in your doctors, so it really dictates the plan from there. So, you only have to make one decision.
That's not too bad. You really just narrowed it down, which you can't complain about.
No.
And so a lot of people then I hear that, you can add this drug plan. And so if you're not taking prescription drugs, do most people need to sign up for the drug plan as well?
Yeah, that seems to be probably the most confusing. And sometimes the drug plans themselves can cost more than actually the supplement that you choose. And so that it is important to look at the drug plan. So I'll run across teachers that say, I don't take any drugs. So why do I need to pick up a drug plan? Well, the government sort of says, yeah, you can forego the drug plan, but the minute you want to turn that on, we're going to penalize you for every month you didn't take it. And that penalty lasts for life. So what I tell people is, let's put you on the least expensive drug plan out there if you take no drugs. And that way, if something pops up, then you're covered. So that's something that's very important to do. Now, with the Medicare Advantage plans, a lot of those have drug plans already built into them. So, but that's why you definitely don't want to ignore that.
That's very sneaky. Because I could think not taking meds, don't need to do that. So that is very interesting.
Yeah.
And then how are you, does it cost to have a conversation with you? Or who are you kind of paid by, so people can kind of understand that?
Yeah, and that's important because you can call an 800 number off the television. I don't recommend that for several reasons. Even though the commercials are wonderful at creating FOMO, fear of missing out, and they're unfortunately they're super misleading. So they're telling you, you don't have to pay that Part B premium. We'll have a plan that'll pay you back that. Just call this number. Well, it's technically true, but not for very many people. And so when you call that number, they're going to give you the sad news that's not available to you, but they're going to go ahead and write you all up, and then if you don't do it, you're on their radar. So, and you're calling a specific carrier. So you don't have that, let me sit back and figure out what's good for me by process from doing that. So that's one of the reasons, you want to use somebody that's independent. And then I'm not biased towards any particular carrier. So if all the carriers are available to me, when we pick out a plan that works for you, the carriers pay me. And it's exactly the same amount of premium that you're going to pay by going through me as if you called the carrier directly and went through, one of the carriers. So you don't pay for my services, but what you do get is 10 years of me saying, oh yeah, this looks good, but here's the problem. And that's what you don't know. You need a little, I call myself a little bit of a Medicare ninja, because not only do I want to start you out on the right path, But as things change in Medicare, I'm proactive. So I'm going to reach out and say, you know what, that was great 3 years ago, but guess what I got right now that I think would be wonderful for you. So I can keep you, your premiums lower and keep you doing what you would do for yourself. I'll just, since I'm inside the industry, I just do it for you.
Wow. I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't call someone up because they're a wealth of knowledge, which the thing that just I keep thinking about is you also know the history of the premiums and how it flows, which is interesting because it could seem like a deal today, but you might be like, yeah, every year or every 2 years they skyrocket or, whatever it is.
Yeah. And another good example is one of the most frustrating things that we can't really solve, but we can, figure it out as closely as we can and it's the drug prices. So I get calls all the time. It's like somebody just put me on Xarelto or Trilogy, all those commercials that you hear, and they're getting a prescription for it. Guess how much those cost when they get to the pharmacy? I mean, they're just calling me up, total shock and denial. Well, because I'm super active nationally, trying to figure things out for you, there are resources. There's a network of pharmacies that now sell Medicare that have decided they're going to set together a channel for all other agents. So when my client says, "Oh my gosh, I just got Trilogy prescribed," I can go in there and type in, my client just got a Trilogy, and they can say, "Well, here's where you need to go to get that for free."
Wow.
So I mean, keeping up in the industry. That's not a normal. If you call an 800 number, you're not going to get that person again, number one. But when you run into issues or claims or some problems, the neat thing is don't call even the carrier. Call me. We'll work it out for you. And then and we know the questions to ask or how to dig, or and we try to help solve those issues that crop up.
That's awesome because you really can't prepare for everything. You never know what you're going to be prescribed. And in the doctor's office, you never know what the pharmacy is going to charge you. I do like now that sometimes I'll go and they'll be like, "You do know this is over $150, right?" I'm like, "Oh, thanks for mentioning that before you fill it." Like, it's a very helpful conversation to have.
Right.
But that way you could just call up Laura and be like, "Hey, so what's the option here?
What do you know about this?" And that's how I learn. And I tell people, a lot of my clients, they will call and tell me what they're struggling with. And then I'll send them off to call a number or, to do another action. And then I tell them, call me back and tell me how that went, because that's how I learn. So I learn as much from my clients, as I do from, any of the other resources, because they'll say, "Well, here's how it went." And I think they appreciate too, that they can reach back and kind of, retell what happened. So they kind of know I'm in the loop.
Yeah, definitely. And then that way, when you give referrals, when they get another referral or something, know how the process goes already, probably. So it's very much trusted both ways, which is awesome.
Yeah.
We've already, flown through a ton of great information. Is there any other things about Medicare that you think is very important for for our communities to know?
Well, it's it's kind of the time in your life. Like I said, you have to get over the emotional shock of being 65. And as I'm getting kind of closer in the age, I kind of relate to them because in my brain, I'm 26 years old, and so they are too. They have that same feeling. It's like, wow, okay, I'm still feeling like I'm in my 30s, and that's great. And but you need to respect that person and relate to them in that same fashion. So it is an emotional thing for them. So you just want to be sensitive to how you want to treat them. And then I like to start talking more about what are you going to do now that you're retired? What's your passions? And let's talk about those, because Medicare is boring. I'll handle that for you in the background, but let's talk about the trip. Let's talk about, the things that you always dreamed you would do. I'm going to encourage you to do them. So that's, you'll get a sisterly love from me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so what is going to be one of your retirement goals?
Oh my goodness. I am a huge traveler. So I will be jetting around in different countries is my retirement goal.
That sounds awesome.
And I've figured out how to travel pretty inexpensively some of these countries, instead of going to Croatia, I'm going to go to Albania, so you don't want to follow where all the crowds are going. You want to go a little bit further so you get to discover something new. And it's so inexpensive in other countries, to live and enjoy fresh fruits in the oceans and things like that. So, yeah.
Well, just let us know when we're headed out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Laura, for all this great information. It's really been very helpful. We know 64 and a half is a great time to start having the conversation, pick up that drug plan, but really call Laura because she'll help you today and tomorrow, keep you up to date. And when you have questions, you don't have to sit on a phone line. You just call Laura and, if anything, get her inbox and get a call a couple days later. So her information has been going down through the bottom here, so you can always email Laura. She's one of our Purse Strings approved professionals, so you can reach out to her off our site, pursestrings.co. And we will be back here in a couple weeks for another Lunch and Learn. So thank you, and we'll talk to everyone soon.
Well, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.